Story number 1, parking structure. I arrived at the Burnside Street parking structure at 11:30 on a Thursday morning in late October to conduct a standard pre-renovation security audit. The property management company, Cascade Development Partners, had contracted my firm to document existing camera coverage, lighting failures, and structural access points across all 7 levels. The building was scheduled for demolition in 6 weeks, and the audit was routine. The kind of work I had completed at 17 similar properties over the previous 4 years. The structure itself was unremarkable. Built in 1984, it showed the expected wear: cracked concrete, water staining on the upper levels, non-functional fixtures. I had been given a complete set of blueprints, a floor plan key, and access credentials. My supervisor, Marcus, had briefed me by phone that morning. The job would take 2 days, possibly 3. Standard documentation, standard pay. I spent the first 2 hours on levels 1 through 3, photographing camera positions, noting dead zones in lighting coverage, and marking structural vulnerabilities. The work was methodical and uneventful. By 1:15 in the afternoon, I was on the 4th level, moving through the parking bays with my clipboard and camera. That was when I noticed the emergency exit stairwell door propped open with a cinder block. The door itself was not unusual. The violation was minor. Fire code prohibited propping, but decommissioned buildings often had such lapses. What struck me was that the cinder block appeared freshly placed. The dust around it was disturbed. I photographed it and made a note for my report. I opened the door wider and looked down the stairwell. The concrete steps descended into shadow. I could see boot prints in the accumulated dust on the landing below, descending further. The prints were fresh, the dust displaced within what I estimated to be the last few days. They led downward, towards sublevel 2. According to the blueprints I had been provided, there was no sublevel 2. The structure had one basement level designated for mechanical systems and storage. That was documented. That was all. I called my supervisor. The call connected, but the signal degraded within seconds. Marcus's voice broke apart. I told him what I had found. He told me to hold position. The line went dead. I tried again. No signal. I checked my phone. Full bars displayed on the screen, but the call would not connect. I waited 3 minutes and tried again. Nothing. I made a decision that violated my own protocols. I descended the stairwell. The air temperature dropped as I went down. The 4th level landing, the 3rd level landing, the 2nd level landing. The boot prints continued. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a door marked 2 in faded stencil. According to my blueprints, this door should not exist. It was unlocked. I opened it and stepped into a finished corridor. The lighting was functional. Recessed ceiling fixtures, casting even illumination along a hallway that extended perhaps 80 feet in both directions. The walls were painted a neutral gray. The floor was polished concrete. Numbered doors lined both sides at regular intervals. The doors were unmarked except for their numbers. I could see at least 16 doors from my position. This space did not appear on any structural plan I had been given. It was not in the blueprints. It was not in the property management company's documentation. It was climate controlled. It was maintained. I stood in the corridor for approximately 40 seconds without moving. Then I heard the sound. It was not mechanical. I initially categorized it as HVAC noise, the kind of ambient sound produced by ventilation systems in sealed commercial spaces. But as I listened, I recognized the pattern. It was breathing, synchronized breathing, multiple instances. Coming from behind the numbered doors, the sound continued for perhaps 8 seconds, Then it stopped. I did not document this space. I did not photograph it. I turned and walked back to the stairwell door, closed it behind me, and ascended to the 4th level. My phone signal returned immediately. I stood in the parking bay and waited. Within 2 minutes, my phone rang. It was Marcus. I told him what I had found. I described the stairwell, the door, the corridor, the numbered spaces. I described the sound. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he told me to log the stairwell as a mapping error in my preliminary report. He told me to note the propped door as a fire code violation. He told me to continue the audit on the upper levels only and to submit my final report with the basement section redacted per his instruction. I completed the audit on levels 5, 6, and 7. I took photographs. I documented camera positions and lighting failures. I noted structural access points. The work was straightforward and without incident. I submitted my report 4 days later. The basement section was redacted as instructed. The stairwell appeared only as a notation regarding fire code violation. The sublevel corridor, the numbered doors, and the sound I had heard were not included. 2 weeks after I submitted the report, Marcus called me. He told me that the property management company had received my documentation and had classified the audit findings. He told me that the demolition project had been delayed indefinitely without public explanation. He told me that I was being reassigned to commercial properties outside the downtown corridor, effective immediately. I have not been assigned to any parking structure since that contract. I have not returned to the Burnside Street location. The building still stands. I do not know if the renovation or demolition ever proceeded. I do not know what the numbered doors contain or what produced the synchronized breathing. The incident was closed and archived on November 9th of that year. My reassignment was processed without further communication. The contract was fulfilled, the payment was received, and the matter was officially concluded. Story number 2, Specimen Log. I arrived at Lake Vermilion Fish Hatchery on a Tuesday morning in March 2019 at 8:45. The drive north from Duluth takes 2 hours and 20 minutes. I had inspected this facility 3 times before without incident: 2016, 2017, and 2018. The work was routine. Water chemistry, tank counts, feeding logs, disease screening. I knew the protocols. The manager, Richard Holbrook, was not present when I pulled into the gravel lot. His truck was not in the parking area. The 2 technicians on site, both men in their mid-20s whose names I recorded as Marcus Webb and Thomas Cale, explained that Holbrook had not reported for work in 4 days. No call in, no message. They had continued operations on their own, following the standard feeding schedule and maintenance rotation. They seemed calm about it. I noted this in my preliminary log. I began the inspection in Building A, the main intake and filtration station. Everything appeared normal. Water flow rates matched the previous year's documentation. The filters were clean. I moved to Building B, where the rainbow trout stock is held. Standard counts, standard behavior. The fish responded normally to the net when I took my sample specimens. Building C is where the wally fingerlings are kept. This is the largest operation at the facility. 12 tanks, each holding approximately 4,000 fish at various stages of development. I had counted these tanks in previous years without difficulty. When I entered Building C, I noticed immediately that all the identification tags had been removed from the tanks. The laminated cards that list species, age cohort, stocking date, and transfer destination were gone. In their place, someone had written labels in black marker on white tape. Each label read the same thing: Aold Dio Nananasvar. I asked Webb about this when he followed me into the building. He said Holbrook had made the change about 2 weeks prior. He did not explain why. I asked if there had been any disease outbreak or contamination concern that would warrant a hold order. Webb said no. I documented the deviation and continued with my count. The water temperature in the first tank measured 39 degrees Fahrenheit. I checked the thermometer twice. The operational range for Wally fingerlings is 52 to 68 degrees. I checked the second tank, 39 degrees. The third tank, 39 degrees. All 6 tanks I sampled read the same temperature. I asked Webb if there was a malfunction in the cooling system. He said the system was functioning normally. I asked if Holbrook had ordered the temperature reduction. Webb said he did not know. The fingerlings in these tanks were moving. They were active. They showed no signs of cold shock, no lethargy, no clustering behavior that indicates thermal distress. They moved in circles. All of them. All 12 tanks. The entire population of fingerlings in Building C was moving in synchronized circular patterns, counterclockwise in each tank, all moving at the same speed. I watched for approximately 3 minutes. At 47 seconds past 3 minutes, all the fish reversed direction simultaneously, clockwise, all 12 tanks, all 4,000 fish in each tank. I have worked in fisheries management for 12 years. I have observed thousands of hours of fish behavior. I have never documented synchronized directional reversal across multiple populations. I asked Webb if this was normal behavior. He did not answer. I asked again. He stared at tank 4 and said to keep the count even. I asked what he meant. Webb repeated the same sentence. Cale came into the building and placed his hand on Webb's shoulder and led him outside. I attempted to take a sample specimen from tank 4. Using a standard net, I submerged the net. Every fish in the tank stopped moving. They sank to the bottom. They remained motionless. I withdrew the net without a specimen. The fish resumed circular movement within approximately 8 seconds. I attempted this procedure in tank 7 with identical results. I did not attempt it again. I documented these observations in my field notebook. I photographed the temperature readings. I did not photograph the fish. I contacted my district supervisor, James Calloway, at 11:30 in the morning. I described what I had observed. I did not describe it in detail. I said there were irregularities in tank behavior and temperature control that required clarification from the facility manager. Calloway told me to secure Building C and leave the premises immediately. He said he would contact the facility owner directly. He said, I should not file a standard inspection report. He said to return to the office and wait for further instruction. I locked Building C. I did not inspect the remaining tanks. I left the facility at noon. The facility was listed as temporarily closed for equipment maintenance on the state website the following Monday. The closure was posted as indefinite. I was reassigned to Southern District inspections for the remainder of the season. My route no longer included any northern facilities. My inspection logs for March 19, 2019, were removed from the state database. I was informed of this removal by email. No explanation was provided. 2 weeks later, I received a written commendation in my personnel file for my handling of a sensitive operational matter. The commendation did not specify what matter it referred to. The commendation was dated March 25th. It was signed by someone in the state office whose name I do not recognize. I have not been assigned to Lake Vermilion Fish Hatchery again. I have not inquired about the facility's status. I have not contacted Richard Holbrook. I have not spoken to Marcus Webb or Thomas Cale. The matter was closed. The file was archived. My assignment was changed. This is how these things are handled. Story number 3, Dispatch Transcript. I arrived at the Emergency Dispatch Archive Facility in Loudoun County on a Tuesday morning in March. The building was a low concrete structure set back from the main road, surrounded by bare trees and a perimeter fence. My assignment was routine, a federal compliance audit of 9/1. One-call recordings from the previous fiscal year. I had conducted these audits at 7 other facilities across the region. The work was straightforward and rarely produced anything of note. The facility supervisor, a woman named Patricia Chen, provided me with standard access credentials and directed me to Workstation 4 in the climate. Controlled listening room. The room contained 4 identical workstations arranged in a line, each with a headset, a monitor, and a keyboard. The walls were painted a neutral gray. There was no window. Chen explained the filing system, confirmed my audit parameters, and left me alone at approximately 9:15 in the morning. I began reviewing recordings in chronological order, according to audit protocol. Each call was logged with a timestamp, duration, call type, and dispatcher name. I listened to residential fires, traffic accidents, medical emergencies, and false alarms. The audio quality was consistent. Most calls lasted between 2 and 4 minutes. I made notes on a standardized form, checking boxes for completeness, clarity, and procedural compliance. At approximately 11:20 in the morning, I encountered a call dated October 9th. The call came in at 19:40, 3 hours, reported a structure fire on Catoctin Mountain Road, and lasted 47 seconds before the audio became distorted. The distortion was not a simple dropout or compression artifact. It was a low-frequency interference pattern, almost rhythmic, that did not match any equipment malfunction I had encountered in previous audits. The pattern sounded like something was being layered beneath the primary call audio, but I could not isolate it clearly enough to determine what. I flagged the recording for technical review and continued the audit. Over the next 2 hours, I identified 6 additional calls from October 9th through October 14th containing the same interference. In each case, the distortion began at precisely the 47-second mark, regardless of the original call duration. This consistency suggested the interference was not random degradation, but something systematic. I requested the original backup files from Chen. She checked the retention schedule and informed me that those specific dates had been transferred to off-site storage 3 weeks prior. I referenced the operations manual posted in the facility hallway. The manual clearly stated that backup files were retained on site for a minimum of 18 months. The dates in question fell well within that window. Chen acknowledged the discrepancy, but could not explain it. She suggested I contact the regional records manager, but she did not seem surprised by the contradiction. I returned to Workstation 4 and attempted to isolate the interference pattern using audio analysis software available on the system. I applied spectral filtering, noise reduction, and frequency isolation tools. What emerged from beneath the distortion was not equipment noise. It was a human voice. The voice was calm and measured, speaking in a tone consistent with a dispatcher or operator. It was repeating a street address 2318 Loudoun Street in Leesburg. The voice repeated the address approximately 8 times before the primary call audio resumed. I cross-referenced the address against the dispatch database. No emergency calls had ever been logged from that location. I searched the facility's service area maps. The address fell within Leesburg's downtown corridor, a commercial district. I checked whether the address had ever appeared in any of the calls I had reviewed. It had not. I documented my findings in a preliminary memo to my regional director, listing the 7 recordings, the interference pattern, the repeated address, and the discrepancy regarding the backup file transfer. I noted that the voice on the recordings did not match any of the dispatchers assigned to those dates. I suspended the audit pending technical review. My regional director called me at 2:55 in the afternoon. He instructed me to complete only the non-flagged portions of the review and submit a standard compliance report. He did not ask questions about the flagged recordings. He did not request copies of my analysis. He told me the 7 recordings would be reclassified as corrupted media and scheduled for destruction under data quality protocols. He said this was routine for aging backup files. He reassigned me to a telecommunications fraud investigation in Delaware, effective the following week. I finished the non-flagged portion of the audit by 4:30 that afternoon. The remaining recordings were compliant with federal standards. I submitted the standard compliance report the next morning. The report contained no mention of the 7 flagged calls. I never received confirmation about whether anyone visited the Leesburg address. I did not follow up on the matter. The facility supervisor, Patricia Chen, transferred to a different position within the month. I learned this from an automated email notification about staffing changes in the region. I was already in Delaware by then, reviewing call logs for a different purpose. The incident was filed under case number 2020-40771-4 and marked closed. The 7 recordings no longer exist in any accessible archive. The address in Leesburg remains in the database only in my original memo, which is stored in a restricted file. I have not been reassigned to that facility. I have not been asked about the recordings again.